We are joined by Senator Nicole Boyd to start this segment. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Appreciate a few minutes of your time. Senator Nicole Akins Boyd represents District 9. That's Lafayette and part of Panola County. And she is chair of the Universities and Colleges Committee on the Senate side. Busy start to the session. We were speaking with the legislator last week, and it felt, at least publicly, like last week was a little quieter. I guess committee meetings are off and rolling. Most of the bills that are up for consideration are in place at this point. What does this week coming up look like?
So this week is a really busy week. We will be having a lot of committee meetings this week because we have a deadline a week from Tuesday that all bills have to be out of the committee and all committees, and so to go to floor action. And so we will have committee meetings kind of back to back all this week, and then Monday and Tuesday of next week will be super busy. And Tuesday is the day that, because it's a deadline day, and so you may have 2 and 3 committee meetings that will be going on sometimes at the same time. And so those are the days you wear your tennis shoes so you can walk up and down the 3 flights of stairs where your different committee meetings are, so that you can make sure that you get to what you need to get to. So it's kind of a fast and furious week these next few days.
You know, it's interesting to look at how state governments are kind of running parallel to the federal government with the election of Donald Trump as the 47th president. I feel like this DEI bill that is coming out of the Senate was coming regardless of the outcome of the election, but with some of the executive orders that are being put in place, maybe brings it to the forefront a little bit. You are the author of Senate Bill 2515. This is a DEI bill for universities and colleges. Let's just kind of jump in and talk to us about, one, what's in it, and two, why was this one important and kind of at the top of the list for your committee?
Well, last year we had last year the bills came forward, but last year was the beginning of a new session. It also is a bill that really never came to my committee. Last year, it went through one committee first, and it didn't make it through that committee process, and so it never really came to my committee. But we knew this was something that was ongoing in some of the states, and then a number of states were looking at this. And the reason for this is that nationally we've seen a lot of emphasis that people have placed on DEI, and we know from studies that have been done and all of that, many times these actually have a completely detrimental effect to looking at, looking at people and how that they work in environments. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was we knew that this would be something we would take up. We didn't have time to study it last year because there's a lot of confusion on this particular issue, because people don't really, if you ask 10 people in a room what DEI is, it's going to have a different definition to all 10 people. So we did a lot of work on looking at what other states had passed, really how those have been implemented in other states. Last year we told the College Board and many of their representatives we will be passing something in the future. So look at your programs, look to see what you're doing. And many of our colleges and universities had either done away with their DEI offices or are in the process of doing away with their DEI offices. And so anyway, so we have spent the last year really talking to colleges and universities and watching the process as they dismantle their DEI programs. A lot of these DEI programs really kind of came into play really from their accreditation bodies and things like that were requiring, and the federal government that was requiring these universities to adhere to own federal grants, on accreditation standards, those DEI policies. We really looked a lot at Texas, who had dismantled their DEI programs And so wanted to make sure that our universities and colleges knew that we were going to be looking at that, and we thought passing that as well. We knew that we had support for that. So we want to make sure that we are, we're banning things that that required students to take pledges or oaths or professors to do the same thing. And we wanted to really look at people, wanted these students to be able to be judged on their own merits, what they brought to the studies and their academics, and really be evaluated on themselves individually. So that is one of the things that we've looked at and tried to do.
So it's about being qualified, not having a particular skin color or gender identity or whatever other, buzz phrase you want to use.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, our language of our bill says that, nobody is superior and inferior based on your race, your sex, or your identity. And nobody's inherently oppressive or responsible for past actions of other groups. So those were the things that we wanted to make sure that our students were being evaluated on that. So we spent a lot of time in looking at how you do this effectively. And so that is, we've got a pretty comprehensive bill that really looks and addresses that. And we put a process in place where students can, file a confidential complaint. That's the processes that we're asking IHL to develop, so that they don't have to go to court and file something, that they can file something confidentially with IHL and look at those, because that's really practical, actually, for a 19-year-old shouldn't have to go to court immediately. They should be able to file an administrative process. That they look if they think that this ideology is being imposed upon them, or they're being forced to sit in a training where this is being, pushed upon them. And so that's one of the things that this legislation does. But legislation also has kind of another part with it. And that's a part where we really look at the efficiencies of our colleges and universities. We have about 80,000 students in our IHL systems statewide in Mississippi. And we want to look at those graduation rates. How quickly are people getting degrees? Are they able to do it in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? And are they getting those degrees? And looking at those graduation rates, are they getting the degrees in jobs that are going to make them successful? And there needs to be a really big study in regards to that. So those are the things that we are really focused on at our colleges and universities, and really doing that. So the bill has really two parts to it, and it's, looking at those efficiencies and then looking at our DEI and making sure that that we are prohibiting those things that you're seeing very much the federal government right now dismantle.
Visiting with Senator Nicole Boyd. She represents District 9 and is chair of the Universities and Colleges Committee. You mentioned a second ago that some of the universities have been proactive in dismantling DEI programs that are in place. The state auditor, Shad White, has been the most vocal about these DEI programs and the waste and kind of the lack of balance and openness that exists, and has accused some of the universities of just kind of renaming the programs without really changing anything. Do you see that as accurate or not?
I'm not really sure what he's specifically referring to. I have seen some universities do some very much dismantling of their programs. I can't speak for every university. I'm not sure what the auditor is proclaiming, and I haven't heard him kind of give any real specifics to that. So I'm not really sure what he's discussing. I know that this is a piece of legislation that we are putting forth that will make sure that those offices really are focusing on getting students graduating and getting them across that line to graduate. So, one of the things the universities had to do is their programs that they had in some of these DEI offices were veterans programs. They were programs for those with disabilities, and they were programs for low-income students and various things like that. And so they've had to put programs that very much we want to see them help our veterans. In fact, my committee has held hearings in conjunction with our Veterans Affairs, really looking at the programs that are being offered to our veterans across the state, because that's something we feel like is very important. And we're very pleased that our veterans programs in Mississippi, we had the University of Mississippi, we had Mississippi State, and we had the University of Southern Mississippi. And those three programs are some of the top veterans programs in the country.
Senator, hold that thought. We'll pick this up, if we can, on the other side of the break, up against a hard break. This is the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. Talking about Senate Bill 2515, authored by Senator Nicole Boyd, with 8 co-sponsors on the bill, an act to require efficiency for our colleges and universities system. It's the Refocus Act, and to establish efficiency, and then also there's the DEI piece to this in terms of removing the diversity, equity, and inclusion pieces that have been put in place at some of the universities. I've got to ask you, Senator Boyd, as we look at this, are all options on the table when you talk about efficiency within the university and college system? We know about the significance of the community college system in the state of Mississippi. I think most would argue that there are, for a state of our size, perhaps we've got too many four-year colleges or universities. Is part of this bill and this task force that's being put together examining whether or not there should be any consolidation or elimination of colleges or universities within the state?
Well, the bill really, we're, different people have mentioned this, but it has been many years since we've done a full examination of our colleges, our universities, and then layer upon that our community colleges. And so this bill, what it really seeks to do is really look at our graduation rates, first of all. Well, first of all, too, before even that comes to play, is something that we brought up on SuperTalk many different times, is we have an enrollment cliff that is looming very much. We're already starting to see some effects of that, and then we're starting to really see the impact of that beginning this next fall. And across the country, we know that there are less students that are age 18 that are going to be matriculating to college. And so one of the things that our committee did last year even was look at the impact and the effects this enrollment cliff is going to have in Mississippi. We already have less people in colleges and universities. And so one of the things that we have really been impressing upon our colleges and universities is, how are you going to manage this enrollment cliff? And so we have some that have really extensive plans on how they are managing this enrollment cliff, what they're doing to recruit more students in. You see that with the huge increased enrollment at both the University of Mississippi and Mississippi State University, and they've got very extensive plans on that. And so we've been asking for those plans from all of our colleges and universities. The other thing, too, is we have to look at, are the majors that we're offering, are they the ones that are going to help people go get jobs? Are they the things that is going to help create a strong workforce in Mississippi? And so all of the things are going to have to come into play when you look at the enrollment cliff. But we are all set out to say, how are we going to be efficient with our dollars in Mississippi? How are we going to get raise the level? And the other thing, too, is when I'm saying this, too, is we want to make sure that we increase the number of college graduates in the state of Mississippi. Now, we're also very much, too, needing to increase the number of skilled workforce in Mississippi with certificates that industry want when they come into the state. And so how do we do that, and how are we doing that? So there's several, goals that we have in Mississippi to do that, but we've Mississippi, unfortunately, has one of the lowest educational attainment records in the country. And we only have about 1 in 4 Mississippians with a college degree. And so we need to increase that number so that we can keep providing that skilled workforce. We also need to increase the number of individuals with certificate programs that have very specialized programs. And that's how we are going to build a stronger and better Mississippi, by making sure we have a strong, educated workforce. Oh. And so those are the things we really have to focus on in looking at this. And what we know is that there is no single magical solution, no silver bullet to this. It is all very comprehensive, and you've got to look at the systems as a whole. That's what we're doing. And this task force is a way that we begin to make sure that we are creating this efficient systems that's going to have a strong workforce for the state of Mississippi.
Senator Boyd, last thing for you. We've got only a minute left until the end of the hour break. You talk about the enrollment cliff, but you've also got the stories that are saying that Southern universities are thriving right now as universities that, typically are more liberal in the Northeast are beginning to struggle. Is that going to provide immunity here, or are there still things that have to happen, and is nobody immune from the enrollment cliff?
I think that you are seeing, and look, I live we both live in Oxford, Mississippi,
right?
And I meet parents every weekend when I'm at home and throughout the year when I'm here, that have brought their children in from across the country to come here, and they like that it is conservative Southern universities, and we hope that we can keep attracting that. And I think that's where it comes into play is. Do our colleges and universities really have a great way of attracting those students as well? And I think that you are seeing that some of our colleges and universities are doing an excellent job at that. And we've seen growth in some of our 2 largest universities are continuing to grow, and we've seen some growth in our small regional universities as well. But I think that if there's not that plan in place, you're not going to see that continued growth. And
Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry to cut you off. We're at a break. We'll talk to you soon. This is the Gallo Show on SuperTalk Mississippi.